Hello again everybody, it's Tara here from Tiny Teas and welcome back to our Bedtime Stories series. Remember, the first book in this series that we're telling is The Wind and the Willows, and the puppets that I'm using are from Puppets by Post. And this is Chapter 2, The Open Road. And this is where we meet Toad. So grab your blankets and your toys and your animals and let's get comfy for Tiny Tea's bedtime stories. One morning, Ratty was sitting by the riverbank and singing a song all about the ducks. And the mole asked the rat, what I wanted to ask you was, won't you take me to call on Mr. Toad? I've heard so much about him and I do so want to meet him. Oh, why, certainly, said the good-natured rat, jumping to his feet and dismissing poetry from his mind for the day. Get the boat out and we'll paddle up there at once. It's never the wrong time to call on Mr. Toad. Always good-tempered, and always glad to see you, and always sorry when you go. Oh, he must be a very nice animal, observed the mole. He is indeed the best of animals, replied the rat. So simple, so good-natured, and so affectionate. Perhaps he's not very clever. We can't all be geniuses, and he may be a bit boastful, but he has got some good qualities as Toad. Ah, there's Toad Hall, said the rat, and that creek on the left, where the notice board says, private, no landing allowed, leads to his boathouse, where we'll take the boat. And you've got the stables and the banqueting hall. Toad is rather rich, you know. And as Toad saw them pull up, hooray! He cried, jumping up on seeing them both. This is splendid! He shook the paws of both of them warmly, never waiting for an introduction to the mole. How kind of you, he went on, dancing around them. I was just going to send a boat down the river for you, Ratty, with strict orders that you were to be fetched up here at once, whatever you were doing. Come inside and have something. You don't know how lucky it is you're turning up just now. See, I have discovered a real thing, the only genuine occupation for a lifetime. Come with me, dear Ratty, and your friend also, if he will be so very good, just as far as the stable yard, and you shall see what you shall see. He led the way to the stable yard, and the rat and the mole followed him. And there, drawn out of a coach house into the open, they saw a gypsy caravan, shining with newness, painted a canary yellow, picked out with green and red wheels. There you are! Cried the Toad, straddling and expanding himself. There's real life for you, embodied in that little cart. The open road, the dusty highway, the heath, the common, the hedgerows, the rolling downs, camps, villages, towns, cities. Here today, up and off somewhere else tomorrow. Travel, change, interest, excitement. The mole was extremely interested and excited and followed him eagerly up the steps and into the interior of the caravan. The Toad went on, yattering and chattering, until he said, when we make our start this afternoon. I beg your pardon, said the rat slowly, as he chewed a straw. But did I overhear you say something about we and start and this afternoon? Now, you dear good old Ratty, said Toad, don't begin talking in that stiff and sniff sort of way, because you know you've got to come. I want to show you the world. I don't care, said the rat. "I'm not coming, and that's flat. And I am going to stick to my old river and live in a hole and a boat, as I've always done. And what's more, Mole's going to stick with me and do as I do. Aren't you, Mole?" "Of course I am," said the Mole, very loyal. "I'll always stick to you, Rat, and whatever you say is to be, has to be. All the same, it sounds as if it might have been, well, rather fun, you know." Well, they all sat together that afternoon and had some food over the dinner table. And of course, the Toad persuaded both the Mole and the Rat to go with him in his gypsy caravan and take to the open road. And they set off, all talking together at once. It was a golden afternoon, and the smell of the dust they kicked up was rich and satisfying. Can you smell that dust? Out of thick orchards on either side of the road, birds called and whistled to them cheerily. "Tweet, tweet, 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 good day, good day, good day." And as the sun went down that night, Mole whispered to Rat, "Shh, I'll do whatever you like, Ratty. Shall we run away tomorrow morning, quite early, or very early, and go back to our dear old hole on the river?" No, we'll see it out," whispered back the Rat. "Thanks awfully, but I ought to stick by Toad till this trip is ended. It wouldn't be safe for him to be left by himself, and it won't take long. His fads never do. Good night." And the next day, they set off at once, Toad all excited and chattering away, and the Mole and the Rat listening along and watching all of the world go by as the horse clip-clopped down the track. Clip-clop, 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 clip-clop. The old grey horse, dreaming as he plodded along of his quiet paddock, when suddenly they were all just dreamily walking along as well as the horse, that they accidentally drove the cart backwards towards the deep ditch in the side of the road. Oh dear! It wavered an instant, then there was a heart-rending crash. And the canary-coloured cart, their pride and joy, lay on its side in the ditch, something that they could not fix. And Toad sat straight down in the middle of the dusty road, his legs stretched out before him, and stared fixedly in the direction of the disappearing motor car that drove around them. He breathed short, his face wore a placid, satisfied expression, and he faintly murmured, "Poop, poop, 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 poop." And the Toad never answered a word or budged from his seat in the road. So they went to see what was the matter with him. They found him in some sort of trance, and he still murmured, "Poop, poop, poop, poop." The Rat shook him on the shoulder. "Are you coming to help us, Toad? Glorious, stirring sight," murmured the Toad, never offering to move. "The poetry of motion, the real way to travel, the only way to travel. Poop, poop." What are we going to do with him?" asked the Mole to the Water Rat. "Nothing at all," replied the Rat firmly, "because there is really nothing that can be done. You see, I know him. He is now possessed. Quite useless. Never mind him. Let's go and see what there is to be done about the cart." Well, the cart really was broken and couldn't be used at all, and so they had to leave it there and take Toad to the police station, who was still in a bit of a trance. And eventually, a slow train having landed them at the station, not very far from Toad Hall, they escorted the spellbound, sleepwalking Toad to his door and put him inside it, and instructed his housekeeper to feed him, undress him, and put him to bed. And the Rat and the Mole finally headed home. The following evening, the mole, who had risen late and taken things very easy all day, was sitting on the bank fishing, when the rat, who had been talking to his friends all day and gossiping, came strolling along to find him. "Have you heard the news?" he said. "There's nothing else being talked about all along the riverbank. Toad went up to town by an early train this morning, and he has ordered a large and very expensive motor car." Uh-oh, whatever is Toad going to do now? Oh, well, we'll have to wait till chapter 3 to find out. And chapter 3 is called The Wild Wood. Who do you think we might see in the Wild Wood? Maybe we might see Badger again.